All right. So what we're going to do is continue with motion 1, which is the amendments to the BU Constitution. So any discussion around it, and please raise your questions. We'll try and answer as many as we can. Then motion 2, the appointment of trustees, those 5 trustees that need to come on to fulfill that criteria. And the appointment of BU operational leadership, that process we need to discuss as well. So I'm going to open it to the floor. If anybody wants to bring any thoughts on any of these 3 motions before they go to vote, we want to hear any comments or questions on these motions and see if we can answer them. Is there anybody? Thank you. To your name and church, please.
Benny Dreyer, East East Baptist. The appointment of the trustees, will it just be for the 1 year? Considering I heard earlier on from one of the other trustees that the period comes to an end at the end of 2024.
That is correct. It's not for 1 year. It's the 2 trustees have a year left, but there will be an overlap of the new trustees, which is actually how it should work. When it actually gets going, there should be an overlap of trustees going forward, so they don't all retire at the same time or have to come up for re-voting at the same time. They will come in for the next 3-year period going forward.
Andrew Everett from Berea Baptist Church. Just a question of clarity on the 3rd motion. Is that only for the very first election, or was this going to be an ongoing
Andrew, yes, we are particularly bringing it for this once-off election. If we want to do it in the future, it'll have to come as a constitutional change to make it, and then it'll be brought differently.
Yeah, my only concern is you're also asking to change the bylaws, which that means then it's potentially in perpetuity.
No, we don't see it as in perpetuity. We will change whatever bylaws and constitutional articles we need to change if we get guided to do it on an ongoing basis.
My problem is that the motion before us is asking for changes to the bylaws. So by definition, you're asking to change it so that you can continue to... My issue is that as the BU, just as in Baptist churches, it is the members of the church that elect the leaders, not the leaders. And I see this as being a bypass of that process. So you're saying that we are going to allow our leaders to choose our leaders, which is going to take us back to before this change all came in. That was the biggest argument and the biggest problem about the old structure, was that there was this boys' club that had formed, and if we allow this change to go ahead, that's exactly where we're going to get back again.
And that's what we are asking, to override those particular bylaws. That's exactly what we are asking permission of the Assembly for, yeah.
So you're just asking to override the bylaws, not to change them?
Not to change them, no. If we're going to change bylaws, we'll bring the change to the bylaws. We are asking permission.
Then that motion needs to be amended because it says there to change the bylaws.
No, it's, it's not. I will look at the motion again now. Quite right. Thank you, sir. Any other comments?
Yeah, Jason Jacobus from Cornerstone Wood Ministries. Yes, I'm in agreement, that the NLC should take over the process. However, I just would like to know sort of like what process they will follow in sort of order to appoint that. Will they just follow the standard procedures as we know it to be? NLC, sort of like, or like what process will you follow in appointing these positions?
Okay, all right. Okay. We're not changing the bylaws. I think the word probably should have been we want to override the bylaws by permission of this body. So if you grant us that permission, we can get on with appointing those 2 positions. Otherwise, we're going to have to wait a year and plus through to the next one.
Thank you, Chair. It's Credo Mangai from Berea. Just an observation that I want to raise to the House through you. I'm looking at the composition of the trustee, and I'm afraid, I speak with freedom here, that it is not equally represented. I'm concerned. I was hoping to see that this rainbow union is represented here. It's not, it's an observation. I don't know whether there's any reason for that.
Yeah. So that was brought to the, we don't operate, we operate on spiritual maturity, sir. first and foremost, and I think that's the aspect where we came from. But yeah, your point is taken.
Nathan Seal, Western Province, and Silvertown Baptist Church. Sir, I want to speak to, firstly, maybe I want to note that I'm a bit concerned that we are speaking to the motions sort of all over the place, all three together. I would have preferred for us to deal with motion number one, get all the discussions going about that, and then perhaps you could then say the discussions on motion number one is complete now, and then go to, but you are chairing, and I respect that, sir. In terms of motion number three, which is the amendments to the procedure of appointing the operational leadership of the Baptist Union of South Africa, the concern I have is that we are moving away from congregationalism. And that if we are shifting the authority and the process of the appointment of leaders to the NLC, then we are, in my view, very much contradicting the very Baptist brand, which is congregationalism. And if we are doing that, my concern is that we are actually becoming unconstitutional in that the congregation must determine the appointment of the leaders of the organizations. Secondly, my presence here is not in my own capacity. I represent my congregation. And so the congregation are sending me to kind of make up this congregation. And so then for us to forfeit that to the NLC seems to me to be quite unbaptistic. The cumbersome nature of the organization in terms of the efficacy or the efficiency that you need to be able to appoint people in light of the time frames, I think that is inherent in congregationalism. As a pastor at the local church, I find it very frustrating to work via the congregation to bring about changes within the church. But that's the very thing that makes us Baptists. That's the very thing that we must protect, because the illustrations are too many of when our pastors, we're going to deal later with the exit policy, when the pastors take on board an authority, a unilateralism, that then empowers them to make unilateral decisions. I'm very concerned that we are forfeiting that by granting to the NLC such powers and authority to override or overstep or step by the bylaws in terms of this process of appointing these persons. Thank you, sir.
We're not trying to bypass congregationalism. We are coming to you as the congregation, and we are asking for your permission. And you have got the ability to either allow that or vote against it. That's why it is coming up for voting. The purpose behind that is, and I'll respond as we go along, is to speed up the delivery of service to the Baptist churches, not to take away. So we believe that if you have to wait another year, it's another year where we might have the funds and the people to do the job but not be able to do it. And at the end of the day, it's the Baptist churches that will struggle and not be served properly. And that's the motivation behind not trying to sidestep congregationalism or sidestep the assembly in any way. We are asking your permission. And if you grant us that permission, that's well and good. And if you deny us that permission, well, that's also, we live by it. So that's what we are bringing that motion for.
Mr. Chairman, I've already spoken to this point. May I have your permission just for 30 seconds?
One more time,
to add
sir,
to?
with pleasure.
Just your point number 2, the bylaws be amended to streamline the appointments. So you're asking to change the bylaws.
Thank you, sir.
Jason Jacobus, Cornerstone of the Ministries. I'm sorry, I don't want to be sort of difficult, but I asked a question as to what procedure will the NLC take, in the appointment of these positions.
Okay.
And I wasn't answered. So.
Thank you. Yeah. Is that
okay.
all?
And then another one, yes, I agree with Pastor Nathan. That I think that our involvement is important, but I also understand the complication of waiting for a year. And so maybe sort of a compromise or middle ground is for the NLC to go along with the procedures and send correspondence to churches saying, this is the procedures we followed, and, and these are the candidates we have. Can you give your approval or denial of that? And in that way, you are still involving us in the process, but the timeline is shortened. So I think that would be a good procedure to follow.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Just the only thing we're trying to do, Jason, you can stay while I answer if you would like. You had two questions. What is the first one again?
The procedures of the NLC in appointing.
The procedures of the NLC are that we set up a search committee. And the search committee must consist of persons from the NLC, from the churches, and from the regions. There are 3 from the NLC, 3 from the regions, 2 from the churches. And those churches, that becomes your search committee as you would in a normal church. The problem is that we have to bring those names to the assembly. Yeah. And so even if we do the search and we find someone in March, we've got to wait till October before we can even begin to approach that person. And in the meantime, and the assembly could still then turn around and say they don't accept that name, and then we've got another year. And that was the problem. You could take a year to 2 to fill a simple position, which in any organization doesn't make any sense because we're already struggling. And now we're going to struggle even more. And so what we are asking for is that the bylaws be bypassed, is probably a better word than amended, just for these 2 appointments, not on a permanent basis. That, if we want to change it on a permanent basis, it needs to come through a constitutional and bylaw change to the normal practices. What was the other question?
Just that you outline your procedures and send the candidate through in some correspondence via an email or letter, and then we can approve.
Well, we would normally, if we have a candidate's name, and that would be the normal procedure. Okay. That's right, that is part of it.
Jonathan Killian, Grace Baptist, Kempton Park. How are you guys doing today?
Right, Jonathan.
Good. Listening to the previous 2 speakers, and I agree, I think greater clarity is needed on this particular motion, because as it reads, the bylaws be amended to streamline appointments. Plus, there's no expiration to said suspending of the bylaws for this motion to take place. Also, greater clarity on which positions within the operational leadership will be appointed. I see the 3 vacancies, but to be fair, both of you on the table are part of the operational leadership. So should you resign and in the weeks to come, this without that expiration, this gives the authority to appoint a new national ministry leader should it come to that, and I'm greatly concerned about that.
Your point is taken, sir. We will look at that. Thank you. Are there anybody else? Nathan, you can only speak twice.
Sir, I need your permission for a question. Do you have names to present to us today for any one of those positions?
Not at this stage.
Okay.
The search committee has been constituted.
Yes.
They are doing their job, but they haven't finalized names to bring to the assembly yet, no.
What I'm almost trying to ask is, has a process of interviews and that kind of thing started?
It's begun already, yeah. Are there any other questions? All right. I think taken what I'm hearing now from the floor over here, motion 3, I think we just need to relook at the wording, I think, to make it clearer. So I think what we will do is just move motion 3 at the moment and have a look at it. If you don't mind, that we just take that off. Has anybody got a problem with going motion 1 going ahead for votes? And motion 2 going ahead for votes? If there's any problems with that, please just come up. Motion 3, I think we might have to relook at the wording, so we can go back and bring it back to the floor again. Is there anybody here that has got a problem with motion 1 and motion 2 going through for voting? All right. Okay, can we just take 5 minutes to caucus, and I will be back with you guys again. All right. All right. Based on the discussions that were forthcoming from the floor, we have re-looked at the wording on motion number 3, And if you can just have a few moments, we're going to bring it up on the screen and we're going to talk to it. Just wait for Mark to bring it up. And then we will allow the floor again to speak to the reviewed motion, the amendment. We cannot vote for this amendment now in this session because it's been amended. So we have to bring we'll have to make another time for the vote to take place either later today or in tomorrow sometime. But let's just first have the discussion on the amended motion. We are only putting up the resolution, not the full motion as you have it on your books. We're only bringing the resolution up on the screen over there. Check. Mark, is it up on the screen yet? Okay. Guys, just take a moment to, if it's up on the screen, just to read it. And then I will read it through as well, just to clarify some matters. Everyone had a chance to read it? Okay. All right, I'd just like to read it myself to the Assembly, just for record purposes. The Assembly, we've altered the resolution. We've taken out point 2. There was no intention to amend. It was the wording wasn't correct. There's no amendment was intended. It was a temporary arrangement that was asked for. So it leads clumsily, so we will take that part out. So it will only be one resolution replacing point 1. Now, the Assembly delegates, this is the resolution, that the Assembly delegates to the entire National Leadership Council. The entire National Leadership Council means all 14 persons of the National Leadership Council. No one person, not Greg or I, or any, it is to the entire NLC. With oversight from the Board of Governors, so whatever decisions are made in terms of these persons, they will be, the Board of Governors will have oversight on this matter and guide us on this matter. The authority to fill the operational leadership vacancies of the National Pastoral Support Developer and the National Network Developer. So we need to be able to do that in the interim period after this Assembly, and to be ratified, these names to be ratified at the Assembly following the appointment, which hopefully will be next year, 2024. So we are asking, instead of bringing the name for ratification before we employ, we are asking, can we approach these folk and offer them the positions and then bring the names for ratification to the Assembly. I would open the floor now to any further discussion on the amended resolution.
Sir, Paul Witt from Waterkloof. Just a point of clarification. Are you going to appoint a person and then the Assembly ratifies it? So the question is, if you've called a guy and then the Assembly says no, he's been called from a church, then he's lost his position.
Okay, but we are going to send names out before the Assembly, obviously, as well.
Yes. I mean, once he's been appointed, he's been appointed.
No, that is the risk in this case.
So either I think the Assembly must trust the national leadership team and give the right to appoint somebody, and that's the end of it. Or if there's, I mean, in an age like this, we can have Zoom meetings and people can come on who are interested to discuss it. I mean, to ratify it afterwards seems a bit absurd to me. So.
But it will be brought for ratification anyway.
Yes.
Because that is what has to happen, yeah. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments, discussion? All right, what I would like, okay. By the way, for minute keeping that, Paul Witter was from Waterkloof, by the way. Just announce your name, your church, please, when you get to the front. Thank you.
All right, it's Basil Sparks from Durbanville Baptist Church. And just I think the wording, just in terms of ratification, should that not be reporting to the Baptist Union Assembly rather than a ratification? Because obviously the decision has been made. The second question, just the question that I had is just on the role of the Board of Governors. My understanding, would that be more in terms of a governance financial oversight to see whether it is possible? It's not a spiritual decision. They're not part of the spiritual decision, but part of the just seeing financially if this is a viable. Am I correct in saying that that's the role of the Board of Governors in this? Because I mean, from our perspective, just I would want to know what the role of the Board of Governors. Do they have a yes or no say if the NLC have decided this is what they want to do, and then the Board of Governors can veto that? And is that the Board of Governors' role in this situation?
Basil, just stay at the podium. I'll answer your question in case you want to for clarification. No, the Board of Governors do not have a final authority over it. It remains the decision of the NLC. But by referring to them from a legality point of view, from a financial point of view, and from just a procedural point of view, we take their leadership and their guidance in those matters, especially in these types of things.
All right. So I don't think that reads in that way, but I mean, I'm happy to accept it, but I don't think that reads in that way. That reads in the way that the buck stops with the Board of Governors. So that's just my only concern with the way it's stated over there. The other thought that I had, and it's just a thought, and I'm just to use. I know that a lot of churches now, most people here have cell phones, and it might not necessarily be a deciding thing, but to get the kind of feeling of the union. If you have a Baptist Union WhatsApp group that's being used, to put something out there just to try and gauge what the feeling is of the union in the form of a poll saying this is what we're thinking, we don't need to, these are the finances, what are your thoughts on this? Just to give the NLC more feeling as to what is out there in the union. But that's just a suggestion.
Thank you, sir. The word oversight might be better supplanted with guidance from the Board of Governors. If everyone is happy, we can change that. Mark, put in guidance instead of oversight. It just clarifies it slightly. Any other comments from the floor? I would just like, I know this has become a bit of a contentious issue now. I would like, before we pursue, because we've got people's lives here we're talking about. You know, when we employ someone, it's not a light decision. We are asking them to leave a position, and they're entrusting us to be able to fulfill our contractual side from us to keep them employed for the next 3 years. So if this is going to be a contentious issue and gets to the Assembly and that person is then, for some reason, not ratified, I would like a straw vote to see whether we must continue with this resolution or not from this floor. It will give an indication of the feeling of the floor in the House. And so where you are, I need where are all my scrutineers? If you can be at the four corners of the House, please, I need you to count. I think just count down the rows as the tables are lined. I'm going to ask you just to raise, if you're in favor of us continuing with this resolution as it stands now, could you please indicate by raising your green card as a yay? Yes, I agree to continue with the process, and we can just get a count. You can raise now for yay, for yes. Just I need a count. Does everyone take their seats, please?
Here are the results of the first and second motion. For the first motion, 124 yeses, none against, and no one abstained. Motion 2, 108 yes, and 2 against, and only 1 person abstained.
Thank you. And what we would like to do now, we want to open the floor up for motion 5. Motion 5 was the amended motion given to you last evening. And I'd like to allow any debate or any discussion on this matter. So we just invite anybody who'd like to talk to this to come up to the front. Motion 5, the amended motion that was brought last evening to the delegates. If you can come forward now. Anybody wants to talk to that motion? Motion 5 is the church exit policy. It's found on page 21. The amended motion was handed out last evening at the opening of the assembly proceedings. Anybody like to talk to not emotion 5, listen to me, motion 5.
Jonathan Killian, Grace Baptist Church, Kempton Park. I get the heart behind the particular motion, the feel, the sense of creating greater accountability, the sense of protecting property and fostering fellowship. I also understand that perhaps many churches make a decision to leave and don't engage with the union. And we certainly, as a union of churches, need to be more relational in our approach. Just as a member leaving the church, you would hope that they would have a chat to you as the pastor. However, I do feel that this motion sets us on dangerous ground in that it begins to etch away the autonomy of the local church. It also goes against what I feel is the very nature of congregationalism, and against the direct lordship of Christ over every particular local church. On point 3, a church can withdraw at any time without notice. We are a voluntary association of churches. We can give notice or we can not give notice. I would always say we need to give notice. It's the right thing to do. But we cannot impose on the local church an ideal that goes beyond congregationalism, an authority to dictate how a particular church exits. However, on the question of loans, that is something that we should cement, because say a church is taken over by another denomination, money is lost. A lot has been invested in that. So that's something that we do need to have clarified and spelled out. But this particular motion, although the heart behind it is good, it sets us on dangerous ground, and it begins to etch away the autonomy of the local church. The heart may be right now, but as we play this ball out, it becomes dangerous in the future. So I'm not in favor of this motion.
Paul Witzer from Waterkloof. I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago, I was on the executive when the whole question of Cape Town Baptist Church was raised. And for those that don't know, the church property was worth then about 60 or 70 million rand. The pastor was battling to run his church. And as a result, I think it was his people, if I correctly remember, they came and they basically hijacked the church. And I remember a meeting at the executive where they basically told the executive, you can do nothing about it, what we're doing is legal, and we're taking the church. And they took the property. And I remember having a discussion with the pastor of the Baptist church. I said, when they've got that building, they're going to kick you out. And he laughed at me. And it wasn't months later they did exactly that. They kicked him out and they took the building. And I believe, and I support this motion, I was going to say, I think the executive or the NLT, the national leadership, needs to look at when churches build buildings, they need to then go to the church and say, put in your constitution that there's a clause there that can't be reversed, that unless 95% of the church votes in favor, that building stays with the Baptist Union. And give the church, it's really about risk. So there's a problem in the sense of, do we entrust our buildings to the Baptist Union or don't we? I know some churches don't feel comfortable doing that, and the others are. But I really believe when buildings are built, the leadership actually of the Baptist Union actually approached churches to consider putting that clause in right at the beginning, and it can't be changed. And maybe we won't get to this point then of buildings being hijacked. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jonathan. Are there any other comments on this motion? Thank you.
Colin, Greg, how's it guys? Everybody, Byron Munce, Edenvale Baptist Church. I just want to say after reading this, thank you so much for the thought and just the excellent preparation that's gone in, particularly to this document. I want to say I really like how this speaks to the integrity of whoever fills the role of the senior pastor. I hear Jonathan's comments on the autonomy and all of that, but this forces the senior pastor with a theological agenda to put his money where his mouth is. Because if I have the intention of joining a Baptist church that is part of the union, and I go there saying in 2 years we're going to leave the union, I'm saying I'm the savior of the church, and my conviction is the way to go. So I am in favor with this proposal. I think it's really been prayed over. I think we should back it. I also feel that, with regards to the other conversations, my focus is particularly just on how this will ensure as the senior leader of the church, it will ensure that my convictions and integrity is something that I've considered. Because there may be some churches even now that they've left the Baptist Union, but I know that when that specific property was built, people gave money with the intention that that building will remain in the Baptist ministry. So it's not so much an asset loss, though it is an asset loss. It's an integrity matter. And if I don't feel, as the leader of Edenvale Baptist Church, that I want to stay in the Baptist Union, I must have the integrity to step out and leave the church alone. That's what I'd like to say.
Sir?
Nathan Seal, Silvertown Baptist Church. We are in favor of this motion. We just think that slightly further down the road, that in the part of the engagement with such churches that's intending to exit, that I think there needs to be greater scrutiny as to whether the intention to exit from the Baptist Union of Churches, whether that is a pastoral agenda or whether that is a congregational decision. And we'd perhaps like to ask you to share whether it's your experience that often that there's a tension between what the congregation's aspirations are, namely to remain within the Baptist Union, and often a particular pastor's agenda to want to exit, and then he intertwines the two. I don't know if you have a comment on that, sir. Thank you.
I certainly do have a comment, sir. I will speak to you now just to answer the gentleman's comments. Yes, I've had to deal with a lot of these over the last couple of years. And I have a saying that it is pastors and leaders that leave a church, leave a union, not the church. And I have very good, I've good grounds to say that, because many of our churches that have left in recent years, I received many calls from members of those churches afterwards and saying, we were not told this. We were not exposed to this. And so that is the heart behind some of this motion, that we have an opportunity to present the Baptist Union's position on certain things that is denied us very often. And the church goes on the credibility of one or two leaders in that church who don't always give the full story as to why they're taking the church out the union. And that is why this motion has been brought. It's been brought with good intent. We are responsible as the NLC for all these Baptist works. And if we are not prepared to ask the difficult questions sometimes, who is? And so we need to find out, why is a person leaving? What are the grounds for leaving? And the only way we can do that sometimes is if we put it into the Constitution that as you come into the Baptist Church, the Baptist Union of Churches voluntarily, you come through a process. There's a church meeting, there's minutes, there's a decision made. The same should be the other way out, going out, that the church has must display the intent that the whole church is behind this thing, and if it isn't, we must have recourse to be able to ask the leaders for a meeting and engage with them. And that's the intent. The intent is good. The intent is not to dictate to churches whether you can leave or not. If you want to leave the Baptist Union, ultimately you can leave the Baptist Union. We're not trying to stop any church from leaving the Baptist. We just want to make sure it's a fair process, that everybody and all the stakeholders in that church are involved in that process fairly. Thank you, sir.
Lovely. I'm Dean Ford from the Beacon Valley Baptist Church. Mr. Chairman, just from my side, our church fully supports this motion. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I think I just want to say to the Assembly as well, you know what, when we enjoy benefits from the Baptist Union, we like to hide behind the membership issue. We enjoy the membership. But when things don't go our way, then we go back to this term called autonomy. And I really want to encourage you as an executive, I'd like you to be able to formulate something about what really is defined by autonomy. We tend to hide behind that. I don't know. I just think it needs to be demystified. Explain to us what autonomy means. What's the confines of that so we can understand that. But the minute we have a difference, the minute the vote don't go to our way, the minute we want to withdraw money from the Baptist Union, we hide behind autonomy. And that's why I agree with Stephen this morning. We want to enjoy this membership thing, but if we don't like the way things are going, we hide behind autonomy. Guys, let's get our conviction right. That's my view. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Dean. Are there any other comments on this motion? Any other thoughts? Thank you, sir.
Sibusiso Mkhwanazi from Esikhaweni Baptist Church. As a church, we really support the motion. One of the other things that makes us really to support this motion is that some of the churches in our area where there has been no pastor for more than 10 years, some of those churches, some people just came, they tend to be pastors with a different name altogether from Baptist. Now, that's why we support this motion, that we wish that it could be put in place so that as Baptists, we have lost some, but I think this will help us that we lose no more churches. Thank you.
Pastor. Thank you.
Yeah, so often the pattern is that churches that want to leave the BU, so haven't been paying the affiliation fees for quite a number of years, and so will they still be allowed to leave, like with outstanding fees?
Give me ideas now. Any other comments? Any other thoughts? We have to then consider, is there still, okay, all right.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Just name and church, please, sir.
Naftal Buthelezi, Tongat Central Baptist Church. Our church support the motion. I think I support the brother who spoke before me, that in fact it was prayed for, a good thought. Although sometimes our church felt that it has come rather too late, because we believe that when people come to join the Baptist Church, they come there and do it willingly. They find the church building standing there, and if a time comes for them to leave a church that has been in the Baptist Union, they must leave and leave the church building there, find their own place of worship. I'm just talking of a classical example, Chairperson, where the pastor that built a church is with the Lord today. He got the funds from the South African Baptist Missionary Society. And after some time, people from the young generation, they don't even know the history of the church. They write to the Baptist Union and say that we are no longer members of the Baptist Church. We are no longer members of the Baptist Union. And the Baptist Union doesn't do anything. And this is the second year now. A church at Lamontville, I'm just bringing it as a classical example. That church has been hijacked. Representatives from the Baptist Union went to that church to go and find out from the people, because the members of the church did not know anything that they were going to leave the Baptist Union. But whilst they were there, a small group of people, just a couple, a lady who has been in the Sunday school in the church, having not even contributed a thing in the church. They hijacked the church, wrote the Baptist Union, and the Baptist Union has not done anything. It's said, when Pastor Duma put all the sweat in that church, and today the church has been hijacked, and the union has not done anything, knowing that the Baptist Union officials or the Baptist Union are the trustees of our properties. Just to share something, Chairperson, fortunate enough, there was a meeting in Durban where the Minister of Veterans or of the military came to, in fact, give title deeds to churches who have applied. And Lamont Baptist Church was one of those churches. And the representative, the very same lady that has hijacked the church. And we are pleading with the Baptist Union to do something about this matter, because it's going to be a long process. They're still going to advertise about that title deed. We'll be happy if something is done. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Naftal. Have you got any further insights into this matter or any other comments? All right. Folk, we're going to be voting on this motion at 5:30. In the meantime, just to consider what has been discussed here, and also you've had the documents for the past few days in your hands, but we're going to go into the college reports now. I'm going to ask Pastor Greg to invite the various people up.